878%. Suspended youth have an 878% higher risk of incarceration in comparison to their peers. That's a staggering, frightening number. It showcases how our Canadian education system is failing our youth. This is not just a statistic. This is a crisis, known as a school-to-prison pipeline. And by solving this crisis, we can tap into the brilliant minds, creativity, and innovative ideas our current educational system would rather have rotted in jail cells. Ideas with the potential to revolutionize industries, inspire cultural shifts, and drive exponential change. Now, before we get into exactly what this pipeline is, I want you all to close your eyes and imagine the following. 14, just starting grade 9, and excited for your high school years to begin. New friends, new school, and so many new opportunities, just a few moments away. But then one day, you slip up. Maybe you're late to class one too many times, or let your anger get the best of you and find yourself caught up in a school fight. Either way, instead of the teacher trying to help you and better understand why you did what you did, your record is instead permanently scarred with a suspension. Being in school, fall behind all of your classes, and now you're labeled like a trouble kid. A flashing neon sign just above your head that's impossible for teachers to ignore. Underperforming and being known for the wrong reasons causes you to have a pessimistic approach towards school. And that leads to disconnection. Disconnect leads to frustration, frustration leads to more mistakes. You in school fall behind in all of your classes. And soon, graduating doesn't seem so possible. But you need the money. And without a high school diploma, there's not many other options in the fast food joint, and that's just no longer cutting it. Soon enough, you find yourself caught up in petty crime. And the next time you get in trouble, it's not just with your school, but with the police. For those of you who close your eyes, you can open your eyes now. And what you can see is where you found yourself is caught within the school-to-prison pipeline. A brutal cycle that targets youth from marginalized communities. And the most alarming part is that it's not accidental. It's driven by systematic practices and policies embedded within our very own educational system that target youth from marginalized communities. Let's begin by examining one of the pipeline's biggest supporters, the Ontario Safe Schools Act. The Ontario Safe Schools Act, introduced in 2001, presents itself as a typical educational act, outlining acceptable behavior and also appropriate consequences for students. But just a few statistics can highlight this act in a completely new light. The McDonald's government conducted data after the release of the Safe Schools Act, the year following it. And what they found was a 34.1% increase in suspensions, and a startling 1,700% increase in expulsions. I know what some of you guys might be thinking. Didn't the students have it coming? They're just being held accountable, right? But accountability isn't achieved. Because the truth is that these traditional punitive measures just don't work. The American Institute for Research stated that suspensions and expulsions have a weak impact. Suspensions and expulsions are ineffective ways of dealing with conflicts within schools. They also stated that suspensions have a weak impact on being able to reduce misbehavior or improve academic achievement. Two main points of suspensions. What they also found was the harsher the suspension or expulsion, the greater the negative impact it had on not only students, but also their learning. To drive home just how ineffective these traditional punitive measures can be, let's take a look at the JD and JR case. Now before I begin, I do want to mention that there's some parts of this case that might be triggering to some individuals. So if you do feel the need, please feel free to step outside. Now, JD and JR were two students who both assaulted a mutual classmate. And while of course that is completely unacceptable, just looking a little bit more into JR will show just how illogical these traditional punitive measures can sometimes be. JR was a victim of ongoing abuse from her father and also a friend, struggling with undiagnosed ADHD, utilizing substances to help her cope, struggling with suicidal ideation since the age of 10, and self-harming. Knowing all this, do you really think that a suspension was the right fit? Do you think it helped JR become a better person, or even a better student? Absolutely not. Because JR needed support, not a suspension. How many students do you think are like JR? Now, how many do you think our current educational system actually helps? The truth? Not enough. And unfortunately, it's not only suspensions or expulsions driving students out of schools, it's also the way they're being increasingly treated like criminals. Student resource officers placed within schools are meant to help students feel more safe. But for students of color, it can often do the exact opposite. Let's take a look at a simple square fight to demonstrate this in action. For white students, this will be brushed off as kids being kids. Oh, they're just having fun. But for students of color, they'll be immediately racially profiled and violent, leading to student resource officers being called in, and what should be a disciplinary matter now turns into a criminal one. It's the presence of the very police officers meant to protect students that cause students to gain a criminal record over insignificant school offenses, permanent criminal records, that will cause them to not be able to graduate high school, not get jobs, or fulfill their dreams. If students spend their formative years being treated like criminals, then why are we so shocked when they become one? And for those of you who might be thinking, well, perhaps she's talking more about Americans, can't possibly be us, I'd actually like to challenge you to think again. Montreal recently announced an initiative known as the Quick Equity, a $4 million initiative that will send in uniformed officers, psychologists, and cybercrime specialists into schools. But we already know what happens when we increase police presence in schools. Increased police-student interactions leading to more minor infractions due to the escalation of disciplinary matters into criminal ones, and high incarceration rates for youth, specifically from marginalized communities or students of color. This isn't safe. This isn't even education. This is a pipeline straight to prison. So, what do we do? How do we make a difference? I want you to think back to the beginning, where I asked you to imagine yourself as a student stuck in a system meant to work against you. Imagine with me, if instead of being given a suspension, you're instead put in mediation circles, we'd be able to discuss with staff, with student, and receive help and support. They'd be able to understand you better and hear you out. And from all of that, you would then be given a tailored action plan to help you take action and responsibility. This isn't just an idea. It's a reality. It's known as restorative justice. Programs that can be implemented within schools as a substitute for suspensions or expulsions. Organizations like Peace Brothers Canada are already doing amazing work. And their work with Toronto District School Boards have found almost an 80% decrease in suspensions after just 1 year of implementation. And students weren't just avoiding responsibility. Matter of fact, they weren't doing that at all. Instead, they're learning conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, and how to repair harm rather than repeat it. Restorative justice programs are simple, and there's 3 different levels to help deal with different types of student offenses. The first are intensive interventions, which can be utilized as a substitute for suspensions or under restorative justice. JR would now be put into mediation circles, where she'd be able to engage in conversation with staff, student, and, if the individual allows, the student who she also harassed. JR would now be able to engage and better understand the repercussions of her actions through those dialogues, but then also have the opportunity to express some of those underlying foundational concerns within her mental, physical, and emotional health and receive support. JR also wouldn't be absolved of responsibility easily, with staff and students coming up with a tailored action plan to help her remediate the damage done and drive long-term change. In this new situation, JR is able to get access to resources, she's able to better understand the repercussions of her actions, and take responsibility through concrete steps, none of which were previously available. But what about for students or situations that might not be as intense? Let's say two students are just constantly bickering in class, clashing heads, with intention being very clear to staff and students alike. In this case, a targeted intervention will be the best approach. Both students will be given a safe space with a moderator, where they'll be able to engage in structured and meaningful dialogue to better understand their emotions. They'll be able to A, figure out how they're going to treat each other moving forward, and B, how to deal with conflict when and if it arises. This helps to prevent small little incidents boiling over into large offenses, also helps to encourage healthy communication and teach how, and most importantly, protects students. But restorative justice programming doesn't only have to be reactive, with universal interventions being amazing ways for classrooms to engage in these same conversations on conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, and how to repair harm. We all know the saying that prevention is better than curing. And restorative justice programs make use of those measures through proactive activities that help to not only teach students how to deal with conflict, but also how to avoid it. But a pipeline with so many deep-rooted issues requires solutions that are just as multifaceted. And while yes, these 3 interventions are amazing ways to make schools more supportive, sometimes restorative justice can look a little different. Sometimes it'll look like supporting students who have already been suspended or expelled. HOPES is an amazing initiative within our very own Halton district that helps to support suspended and expelled students through allowing them to continue their education and also reach their personal goals. At the beginning of entry, students are able to create their tailored action plan with the help of teachers, staff, social workers, and family members. And then they're given the opportunities and resources to help them reach their goals and ensure a successful re-entry into the education system. It's programs and initiatives like HOPES that shows us that even for students temporarily improving the educational system, there's still an opportunity and a path for them forward, rooted in hope and opportunity rather than punishment. And for those of you who might still be doubting the effectiveness of these programs, I can hear it already. What really can be done with students just talking to one another, right? I'd like to tell you one more story that might change your perspective. 2 boys were on the brink of a fight in a Boys and Girls Club in Pennsylvania. Not only was it a heated situation, but both boys were also gang affiliated. Everybody braced for violence. But then, one paused and said, "Look, I don't want to fight. I don't like what you said. You hurt my feelings." The other paused, then said, "You're right. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Let's not do this." And that was it. A fight that could have ended with serious injuries and also permanent criminal records for the both of them just never happened. Why, you might ask? Because both boys were part of restorative justice programming at their school that taught them a better way. A way that doesn't involve fists or fights or pipeline straight to prison. The current system isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed through implementing these next 3 steps. 1, educate yourself. Unfortunately, this issue is not well known enough, especially in a Canadian context. Educate yourself, because this is our next generation of leaders, and we must be educated on their education. 2, talk, advocate, discuss with your elected officials, government members, and also educational leaders. Tell them that these are the solutions we want our resources invested in. This is the education we want to see. And finally, take action. Be a part of the change. Volunteer with organizations such as Peace Builders Canada. Support initiatives such as HOPES. Be there, take that action, and if you see a gap in your own schools, perhaps start a program. Start with something small, and watch how it will flourish. It's time we stop treating students like criminals and start treating them like kids. Kids who deserve second chances, who deserve to be heard, and who deserve an educational system that doesn't want to see them end up in handcuffs. We can continue and allow the educational system to continue on its path, or we can disrupt it and advocate for transformative, restorative justice. Which feature